After the knitting machine has been selected and the pattern capability is known, a designer turns their attention to the technical design. The designer gets started by deciding how large the canvas should be. The size of the pattern area is determined by the number of courses and wales that will conscribe and contain the pattern. Then comes the creative part of the design. Ideas for a motif can come from anywhere, like a natural object, like a feather, shell, or a leaf. Patterns abound in fine and applied arts. Paintings, sculpture, textiles, and other mediums can be a source of inspiration and motivate the styles of representation. In some cases, the designer may begin with a scanned image and then isolate and rearrange parts. Digital imagery enables designers to modify and generate original patterns. Using computer-aided design, the designer may change or reduce the number of colors. As images are repositioned or change size, the pixels, or small dots representing color on a computer screen, can become fuzzy or jagged. Careful attention to process is required to clean up the design. Once the design is crisp, the designer produces a variety of pattern repeats to create the composition of the final design. Patterns can be replicated side by side, half-dropped, staggered, or tiled. The motif can be sized, flipped, mirrored, or rotated. Parts of the picture can be filled with different colors to complement the overall design. Once the final pattern is selected, the designer instructs the computer application to convert it into a technical design. The computer determines what needs to happen at every feed with every needle. Colors seen on the screen, real colors, are converted to system colors, which are later translated to instructions understood by a knitting machine. On the CAD system used for this illustration, only 3 colors are used to identify which type of stitch is used to produce a pattern. White symbolizes a knit, green represents a tuck, and red defines a float stitch. In this technical design, feed 1 is at the bottom. Across this course, you can count the number of needles used for each pattern repeat. At this point, a designer must shift from aesthetics to technical concerns and take into account what format is used on the machine designated to knit the fabric. Is the knitting machine mechanical, or is it an electronic machine? The layout of the pattern is affected by what type machine is used. The designer indicates which knitting machine will be used, and based on its type, the designer inputs the number of feeds, the number of needles used, and what yarn is assigned to which feed. The designer compares the intended design with what can be produced based on the capabilities of the knitting machine. For instance, a 2-color pattern planned for a single knit must be expanded because there is the option to knit, tuck, or float at each feed. When the designer is confident that desired results can be achieved, the designer instructs the computer application to translate the design information into a language that can be interpreted by a particular knitting machine. If the machine is mechanical, driven by a drum, a pattern wheel, or step jacks, the instructions relevant to a particular machine are detailed on a printout. These printed reports specify technical information such as how to peg drums, how to slot wheels, or what step jack selection applies to a particular machine. If the knitting machine is electronic and equipped with a controller, instructions can be saved to a disk and loaded directly into the machine. In some manufacturing settings, instructions can be routed from the designer's computer to the knitting machine on the factory floor.